What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? Zac Gallen throws a no-hitter against the San Francisco Giants, wink wink, and how close is the D-back star Ketel Marte to returning to the team?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use code all lowercase LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll be talking about Zac Gallen's start against the San Francisco Giants. We'll discuss Ketel Marte and how close he is to returning to the team. And then a little stock up, stock down for the D-backs rotation as we get closer to the postseason. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right, let's get into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. We actually got some breaking news on this podcast as we're recording this pod. The Giants actually just made a move, a team that the D-backs defeated tonight to win another series. They just re-signed their third baseman, Matt Chapman, to a massive deal. Jeff Passan just literally delivered the bomb as I hit record on this podcast. 6 years, 151 for Matt Chapman, $25 million a year for 31-year-old third baseman. Interesting stuff by the Giants there. I like Matt Chapman, still a great defensive third baseman. Got some pop in his bat, but 25 a year for the next 6 years for Matt Chapman feels a little bit too expensive. I don't mind that number maybe at a 2-year price tag, but we felt like Matt Chapman has been in the decline like the last 2 or 3 years, and now we're going to re-up him for 25 a year for the next 6 years. Okay, Giants, you can go ahead and do that. I'm happy looking elsewhere on the third base market, more like looking at the Eugenio Suarez market, which we'll talk about on this podcast in a little bit because he had himself a night. But when talking about game 2, D-backs versus Giants, as they win 6-4, you have to start by talking about Zac Gallen, because he had his best start in a while. We know Zac Gallen has been struggling big time in the second half of the season, really since the second half of last year. Like, it has not really looked like the same Zac Gallen, and he's dealt with injuries this year. Like, there's been so many different reasons and factors as to why he has struggled at different points this year. The month of August, 4.94 ERA. Month of July, 5.0 ERA. So back-to-back bad months for Zac Gallen. But so far, starting off the month of September strong against the Giants, because he throws a fake no-hitter. 6 innings, no hits for Zac Gallen, 8 strikeouts. And this is the best start that we've seen from him in a while. And there were still times where he looked shaky and not confident, but we're now starting to see Zac Gallen build a little momentum, because against the Boston Red Sox, which was his second to last start on August 24th, 6 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, 9 strikeouts, very similar to what we saw today. Now, in his most recent start before today, he gave up 5 earned runs. So in 2 of his last 3 starts, he's given up 2 hits or less and no earned runs. So he has been good. More recently, he's been better, but there still hasn't been the overall level of consistency yet from Zac Gallen. But 2 of his last 3 starts have been really dominant. The thing that isn't dominant, though, when you look at the 2 box scores, 4 walks apiece in each game. And in today's game, it really was that second inning for Zac Gallen where you saw him struggling, Saw him struggling with that command, that fastball. He couldn't find it. He had two outs. He got two quick outs. And then all of a sudden, every batter who came up to the plate, he ran it up full count on them with the two outs on the board and then walked two guys. I think at one point walked three straight guys. And he was just struggling at that point to just find what pitch worked. He was very reliant on the curveball that situation, but once he worked through those troubles of the second inning, ended that inning with a strikeout, Zac Gallen was dominant after that because he cruised his way the rest of this game after the second inning. 1-2-3 third with a strikeout, 1-2-3 fourth with three strikeouts. The fifth, 1-2-3 as well with a strikeout. And then the sixth started off with a very long at bat to Mike Yastrzemski, 12 pitches, walks, then gets the one pitch double play right after that. Strikes out Conforto to end the sixth. And Gallen has himself a fantastic start after looking like it might be a little bit of a struggle in that second inning with the command. Was this going to be another start that gets away from Zac Gallen? He bounces back in a big way, figures it out, and ends up having a dominant performance. And maybe he figures something else, and maybe figures something out from the start going forward because we need him to start building momentum, need him to start getting better. I'm hoping this could be the first sign of him starting to build that momentum. Eugenio Suarez, he just continues to be insane since what, July or whatever date we always talk about. I think it's July. Doing all these podcasts, I'd be forgetting sometimes, but Eugenio just continues the hot streak he's been on the last couple months. I mean, think about where Eugenio was not that long ago when he was. We talked about it on the podcast yesterday when we were looking at Corbin Carroll's numbers, those first 87 games. Well, at the same point, when Carroll was struggling those first 87 games and had that 72 WRC plus, Eugenio Suarez had a 73 WRC plus and like a 203 average the first 87 games. Now you look at his average up to 243 after being on a tear the last couple months, slug up to 456, OBP up to 313. And as we talk about, Eugenio Suarez is going to end up with a stat line that's like one of his best in the last few seasons. Like his OPS this year might be his second highest OPS since 2020. If you're counting a full season, like his second highest OPS since 2019, which sounds crazy. His home runs, I mean, he could get up to potentially 30 if he is anywhere near this rate for the rest of the season. Maybe the highest batting average, currently the highest batting average since 2019 as well. The strikeout rate, I mean, at this rate, it might be like his lowest strikeout total since like 2018, maybe his second lowest strikeout total since 2018 at the very least. Like we're looking at like a top 2-3 Eugenio Suarez season in like the last 6 or 7 years. Like as bad as it started off the first 87, he's been so hot the last 50 that he's actually going to end up having one of his best seasons of the last few years, which is crazy to say out loud when you think about where he started. Love to see the speed and the chaos on the bases. Corbin Carroll, 2 bags. I was so disappointed in the Dbacks when I kept seeing Shohei Ohtani just take off whenever he wanted against the Dbacks. I feel like we don't send Corbin Carroll enough. I feel like by the end of this month, he might have 40 stolen bases because I think the Dbacks are going to get super aggressive on the base paths with him. Saw Jake McCarthy get a steal, and we saw the first steal of the season for Pavin Smith, which brings me to my other point. I'll slow down on the Pavin Smith slander, I guess is the word maybe to say. I feel like all my slander to Pavin Smith is justified, but he continues to play well. Big monster home run today. Almost ripped another one down the line that was snagged. He's been swinging the bat well this season. He's been fine. It hasn't been an elite year, but a 458 slugging from Pavin Smith, you'll definitely take that, no doubt about it. So he's been fine, and I'll slow down my slander on him. D-backs did squander a lot of opportunities tonight offensively. 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. This should have been like a 9-4 ball game. And again, it's one of those ball games that make me say, imagine if Eugenio was batting cleanup and not batting 7th in the lineup. Please move him above Josh Bell in the lineup. And then Justin Martinez, back-to-back outings where he looks a little shaky, gives up a couple earned runs. ERA now up to 2.43 for Justin Martinez. And I know some people are calling for AJ Puck to be the closer. I still feel like Martinez with his stuff is still the best option there. But another bad outing or two, and we can re-litigate the conversation. D-backs, one more game in this series against the Giants. Merrill Kelly on the mound tomorrow against Blake Snell. That should be a good one. Regardless, D-backs have already won the series, but it would feel really good after losing 3 out of 4 against the Dodgers to face another California team and get a big sweep before we face the Houston Astros this weekend. Now, I want to talk about Ketel Marte and him potentially returning before the end of the road trip in segment number 2. But hey, if you want to play daily fantasy sports, then I suggest using Prize Picks because it is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Isn't that fantastic? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about the potential return of Ketel Marte because it sounds like he will be returning before the end of the road trip. Not too sure if that means by the end of San Fran, which means one more game, which I don't think will be possible. Uh, that's not what the tea leaves and the breadcrumbs are saying. It sounds more likely that he will be joining the D-backs this upcoming trip against the Houston Astros, a team that the D-backs don't get to face too often. So it could be a nice opportunity for Ketel Marte to go against some pitchers that he doesn't see too often. And maybe that's actually good for him. Challenge him a little bit. His first games back going against guys he's not familiar with. Some people would say I would rather him go against, this San Francisco Giants team, right? With pitchers that he's seen, with a ball club that he's familiar with. But as we've said with, like Merrill Kelly coming back off the injured list against the Phillies and looking great right away. I think sometimes with these guys who are hyper competitive, who's got that dog in him, like the Kellys, like the Ketels, I think it's actually better to put them in tougher situations and more acrimonious situations because I think those guys really step up when the pressure is the greatest. We saw Merrill Kelly off the injured list immediately look good against the Phillies. Ketel Marte, if he's fully healthy, I would rather him go against the Houston Astros, a team that he does not face a lot. Give him a little bit tougher of a challenge. So when he does go against those familiar teams like the Dodgers in October, they can't fool him at all. But when it comes to Ketel Marte and his return, the most important thing is make sure he's 100% healthy. We don't need a repeat of just what happened with Ketel Marte when you said he was hurt, but you're like, you know what? He's only hurt enough where you have to sit him down for a couple of days. He's not that hurt where he has to go on the injured list. Well, you did that. You played him after 2 days of rest, and then he immediately got hurt again, and now he's on the injured list. And so let's not play around with Ketel Marte's health. He is the best Diamondback player. He was having arguably the second best season prior to getting hurt. It felt like Ketel Marte was coming maybe for the MVP, at least closing the gap with Shohei Ohtani. Like the tear he was on right before getting hurt, he was insane. Post All-Star break, second half of the season, you look at the numbers for Marte, 325 average, 1173 OPS in 24 games in the second half of the season, 11 home runs. Like he was doing it all for the D-backs, and it felt like he was coming potentially for that MVP award. But now he goes to the injured list. He misses some time, and guys like Francisco Lindor are passing MVP in the FanDuel odds. I think that's crazy. But for the D-backs, if they want to see the full MVP Ketel Marte, he needs to be fully healthy. You cannot mess with the health of Marte. If the D-backs are serious about the postseason, the World Series, you need your squad fully healthy. You need everyone clicking on all cylinders, and you can't have a compromised Marte out there. You can't have him 80% at the plate, 80% in the field, because that's going to compromise him. And right now, the D-backs have the dudes to hold it down with Marte out because that's what they've demonstrated. Marte is important. Marte is an MVP candidate, but the D-backs can at least hold it down offensively with him out, and that's why they need to wait to make sure he's 100% healthy before bringing him back. Number one in runs scored with Marte out. Marte got hurt on August 10th. You look at the D-backs stats since then, they're still number one in the National League in runs scored. Not a problem. Third in walk percentage, third lowest strikeout percentage. WRC plus, number one. Home runs, fifth. Like they don't even need to be top five in home, or they don't even need to be number one in home runs, but being top five is still good enough. This D-backs team does it all with Marte out offensively. They're just fine. You look at the lineup, you know who has the best WRC plus since Marte has gone hurt? Randall Grichuk. He has been playing really good baseball recently. Corbin Carroll, 732 slugging since Marte got injured. Randall Grichuk, by the way, 722 slugging since Marte's gotten injured. Lourdes Gurriel, 166 WRC plus, 550 slugging since Marte's gone down. Jock Peterson, his numbers actually aren't even that strong with Marte out, but his OBP is actually 443. He's just been an on-base monster with Marte out. And you go up and down. They have 10 guys with over a WRC plus of 100 since Marte's been out. And Josh Bell's right below that at 99. So the D-backs have the dudes, have the depth to hold it down with Marte out. You look at Kevin Newman, we talk about how he's been fine all year. Well, he's particularly been good with Marte out. Entering today's game, 372 average, 400 OBP, 419 slugging with Marte on their injured list since August 10th, 131 WRC plus during that time. The D-backs have the organizational depth. They've been able to do it at every position. Walker goes down. You trade for a Josh Bell. Even a guy like Pavin Smith this season hasn't swinged the bat fine. Gabriel Moreno, you lose him for multiple weeks. Adrian Del Castillo, defensively not the same, but offensively has been able to step in and provide some instant offense for this D-backs team. Ketel Marte, so important to what Arizona wants to do. Now that you see guys like Corbin Carroll clicking, right? Jake McCarthy has really gone going over the second half of the season. Eugenio Suarez has gone going over the second half of the season. You just got Walker back. Soon Gurriel's hopefully come back too with Moreno, but then you add Marte in and you have all these ingredients of guys who are cooking. This recipe is made for a World Series. I believe in this offense. The pitching is another question mark, but the offense I definitely think is good enough to win the World Series. But is the rotation good enough? Are the D-backs pitchers good enough? Well, we'll do a little game of stock up, stock down on the D-backs playoff rotation in segment number 3. But hey, if you like to go shopping, but like to get money back on your purchases, then I hope you're using this little app called Abada because it's summertime, which means it's barbecue season. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Abada. So you won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. Abada is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Abada user earns $256 per year. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Abada, you can earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code Locked On MLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back. Use code Locked On MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or Apple App Store. Use code Locked On MLB. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And I want to play a little game that I'm going to try and remember to do this game every week, but I want to do it basically after every turn through the rotation, after every Ryan Nelson starts. I want to do a little game of stock up, stock down. This way we can kind of see who's tracking as we get closer to the postseason. And then you can also have a little bit of a confidence meeting, also have a little bit of a confidence meter for each pitcher as we enter the postseason. You can figure out how you would want to build your playoff rotation and who should be on the outside looking in. Of course, we got five guys in the mix because Monty's in the bullpen and we're not counting him. And we're actually going to start with Ryan Nelson because he is now the D-backs number one starter. His stock is up. Ryan Nelson still probably has the toughest path to cracking the playoff rotation unless the D-backs use them in the early rounds. But once you get to like the championship series and the World Series where you use four guys in your rotation, Ryan Nelson has been pitching like the best D-backs pitcher, but you just look at the investment the D-backs have in the other guys. Zac Gallen is Zac Gallen. Merrill Kelly's Merrill Kelly. Erod is on the biggest contract, and Brandon Pfaadt is one of the most tantalizing young pitchers in baseball who already proved himself on the postseason stage last year. So Ryan Nelson has to just continue doing what he's doing because he's been fantastic since July. There's nothing from in terms of how he's performing. There's really nothing else he could do from a performance standpoint because he's done it all. He's kicked out Jordan Montgomery from the rotation. All Ryan Nelson can do now is just continue to pitch well for the rest of the season and hope he gets rewarded with a rotation spot. At the very least, he's on the postseason roster. He's going in the pen. Like Ryan Nelson has to be there for the D-backs, but will he be there as just a reliever or will he be there as a starter? Because right now, if you're asking me what I would do, it sounds crazy, but right now, I have more faith in Ryan Nelson than any other D-back starter. He would be my number one starter in the postseason. And if we're like in the championship series, like I'm starting him game one and I'm making sure I could get two starts out of Ryan Nelson in the playoff format, which sounds crazy, but right now, that's how I feel because Ryan Nelson has been way better than anyone else. And I'm like, oh, maybe Ryan Nelson should get two starts in a playoff setting. Zac Gallen, after today's start, his stock is definitely up. Like I said, two of his last three starts, no earned runs, two hits or less, including the no-hitter tonight. Wink, wink. Zac Gallen's starting to look a little bit better. His velo has been good this season. That's been fine. It's really been that command of the fastball. You look at the numbers, opposing hitters are destroying Gallen's fastball this season, but it looks like that curveball is really his go-to weapon right now. That's been nasty. So as long as he could find some success with that fastball, rely on the curveball, I'm praying Zac Gallen could be fine by the time we get to the postseason. Merrill Kelly, he just doesn't have it right now. He looks like he's still working back arm strength. I mean, the velo right now, just not all the way there with his pitches, and he seems to just really be laboring when he's out there. That cutter, which has been a pretty effective pitch for him in the past, just really getting taken advantage of right now by opposing hitters. The slider too, not his most effective pitch either. Merrill Kelly's a guy who I think has the biggest cojones of any guy in this D-backs rotation. Like in a high pressurized playoff moment, I feel like Merrill Kelly's the guy I trust the most. But right now, you can make the argument that he looks the worst of any D-back starter. He just really laboring through these starts. And part of the reason is he hasn't really pitched a ton this season, right? He's still coming back off the injured list after missing many months of baseball. And so maybe the arm strength is not fully there for Merrill Kelly right now. And that's okay. We still got a few more weeks before the postseason starts, but we need to see him start getting it together, see him start building and string together positive starts because right now for Kelly, the confidence as a fan is not there in him. Again, prior to this season, I would have secretly told you Kelly's the guy I trust the most out of this rotation in a big playoff moment. But right now, he might be looking like the worst D-back starter, arguably in the rotation as of today. But I still love Merrill Kelly, and I'm praying he can turn it around. Brandon Pfaadt, his stock is going sideways right now. I won't say it's up or down. I'll say it's sideways because you look at his numbers. He's coming off a really bad August, and like his most recent start is like the perfect kind of sideways start. 5.2 innings pitched, so he pitched decently deep into the game. Gave up 8 hits. You don't like to see that. A ton of contact. 3 earned runs, like that's fine. That's all right. Not elite, but not bad. But then 10 strikeouts, like that's elite. So it's like a couple numbers look really good. A couple of numbers are like, eh. And then it's like, oh, that's not don't want to see 8 hits allowed. So for Brandon Pfaadt, that's why I'm like stock is right now for him. He has the opportunity to build off what he did and hopefully get better because it looks like he's hitting a little bit of a wall right now as we enter the late stage of the season. Because if you remember earlier, Brandon Pfaadt was like Mr. Pitch deep into ball games. Like everything Brandon Pfaadt was doing, 6, 7 innings every single start. And now you look at his last few starts, you'll be lucky if he finishes 6 innings. Might be hitting a little bit of a wall right now. So he's another guy. I don't feel as bad as Brandon Pfaadt as I do with a Merrill Kelly or even a Jordan Montgomery, but the numbers tell you just had an awful August, but I don't see him in the same light as I view the other guys. He's been healthy all year. For him, it's more of a like the other guys need to build up arm strength. For him, it's more of arm fatigue, and maybe he needs to build up arm strength in a different way if he's dealing with arm fatigue. But I don't feel like his stock is down. And right now, Fott, I probably feel like second or third best second or third best in terms of my confidence level in him for a postseason spot. Then how about Eduardo Rodriguez, the last guy I want to talk about, another guy who struggled in the month of August and has just been laboring through these starts recently. He's a guy who just doesn't seem like he pitches deep enough into ball games. He never really has a blow up start, never has like the Jordan Montgomery give up 6, 7 earned runs, but he will have the 3 and 2/3 and give up 3 or 4 earned runs and throw 90 pitches with like 45 strikes. So like throw 90 pitches with like 45 strikes, right? That is the Erod motto. That was really disgusting what I just said there. I just slurred my words altogether. But Erod, there are times where he just doesn't pitch deep into the ball game. He's not giving up a ton of earned runs, but just a lot of pitches and not a lot of strikes. And he is another guy like all these D-back starters, needs to start building the momentum and needs to start stringing together positive starts because right now, when I look at this playoff rotation in terms of the confidence I have in each guy, Ryan Nelson's number one. I'll put, again, between Zac Gallen and Brandon Pfaadt, I'll say it's a toss up. Kelly, I would actually have at number 5 with Erod at number 4 right now for the D-backs rotation. Stock up, stock down. All these guys need to look better outside of Ryan Nelson. We still got some time before the postseason, but it is not looking pretty for these D-back starters. Thankfully, there's still about 3 weeks left until the playoffs. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.